Tonight is the night, my friends. The start of the NFL season. Real football is back, and I could not be happier. On today's Bullpen with Adam the Bull, I'll give you a prediction on Thursday Night Football to start the 2022/23 NFL campaign. Great game on Thursday Night Football between the Bills and the Rams. I'm sure we'll all be locked into it tonight. We will, of course, dive all over the Browns and Panthers, which is coming up in just 3 days. 3 days. And I need the attitude to change from everybody here in Cleveland. We need it to be shipped up. Shipped up? I don't know what the hell that means. But we need it to change. We'll get to that. Plus, the Guardians, with a chance to sweep the Royals, they blow it in the ninth. I guess Emmanuel Clase is not perfect. Unfortunately, blew his first save in forever. Bad timing. That's all coming up on today's edition of The Bullpen with Adam the Bull.
Cast is not for the faint of heart.
And I do think it's time for the Browns to move on.
It's not for those who ride the fence.
He's proven nothing.
But if you're looking for someone who tells it like it is about Cleveland sports,
everybody does fandom their way.
You've come to the right place.
I don't think he's any good.
It's time for the Bullpen with Adam the Bull.
So let's dive right into it. I'll get to tonight's game. I'll get to the Guardians. But I got to begin with the Browns. And I mentioned some of this. I give you a little taste of this on the end, my final take on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show yesterday. But I got to spend more time on this. And ultimately, I don't know, it doesn't really matter in terms of what happens with the Browns. But it's amazing. It's not amazing. I guess it's not surprising at all. I actually understand it as someone that has rooted for teams that never won until recently. So I get the attitude of expecting it to always go wrong. I understand that as someone who grew up. I mean, anybody now knows who the teams I root for. My teams have combined to win one championship in my lifetime, but obviously it only happened 6 years ago. So for most of my life, my teams would always let me down, and I never got to experience that championship feeling. For a lot of Cleveland fans, you've had the same thing. If you're a Buckeye fan, okay, but it's not a Cleveland team, but the Cavs won the championship, and you'd think that feeling would somewhat go away. But I guess when you have that feeling your whole life, you still, even when you finally win, you kind of expect it to go wrong, especially when for a lot of people their favorite team is the Browns. So even though it finally didn't go that way for the Cavaliers, soon after that it did go that way for the then Indians, and now you expect it to go that way for the Browns. But the doom and gloom, the expecting it to go bad for the Browns outweighs anything else, outweighs anything I experienced personally, outweighs the other teams' expected doom and gloom in this town. The always expecting it to go bad for the Browns, that they're always snake bit, it's never going to work out, is unlike anything I've ever seen. And after being here for now over 11 years, I understand it. I get it. I do. But I implore you to try, and it's easy for me to say that now, and if the Browns lose on Sunday, everybody's going to go bananas, right? Like losing one game to Baker Mayfield and the Panthers, or winning one game against Baker Mayfield and the Panthers, proves nothing one way or the other. But myself and everybody else will overreact. We're all going to overreact. We're all going to turn this game into a referendum of whether the Deshaun Watson trade made sense. And ultimately, if Baker and the Panthers win this game, it's going to turn into another woe is me moment. And I get it. But it is still frustrating that I don't know how many fans I have run into in the past couple of weeks. A lot. I mean, everywhere I go, hey, Bull, we want to talk about the Browns. And by the way, I know there's some people, in this business or that will meet fans and it's like, oh, I got to talk about. And I don't mind. If you see me at the supermarket, if you see me wherever, at a restaurant, don't sit down at my table. One person did that one time. Just sat down at my table, which was inappropriate. But because I wouldn't do it to you, so I'm not going to sit down at some stranger's table. I appreciate that you feel like you know me, and people do. I've become friends with some fans, no doubt. But you don't sit at somebody's table. That's just rude. But besides that one incident, and one other time where somebody was really rude for another reason, every other of the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of fans I've met over the years have been great. And we've had a lot of nice conversations. And if you run into me anywhere, wherever it may be, feel free to bring up a Browns conversation. That's okay. It's always funny to me when I can often tell when somebody recognizes me because I get that, there's the look I see in their face often when they recognize me. Although some people recognize me by my voice because obviously my accent stands out here in Cleveland. In New York, when I was working in New York, first of all, I only worked in New York for 4 years, and I wasn't a regular host. I was a fill-in there, so I very rarely got recognized in New York. Oddly enough, one of the few times I got recognized in New York, and plus in New York, my accent doesn't stand out, of course. If anything, I don't have that thick an accent compared to most people in New York. But ironically, one of the few times I got recognized on the street was at a restaurant on my second date with my now wife. The waiter recognized me. I can't, I don't remember the whole circumstance. I remember the restaurant, but I don't know. But anyway, I don't know why I got down this road. Oh, I know. So my point is, I was saying, so people give me that look sometimes there's two looks I get when people recognize me. Either one is I think I know who that is, but I'm not sure. And the other is, I know who it is. Should I say something? And please feel free to say hi. I'm not, I'm happy to talk with, I am very appreciative of all the people that have listened to me over the years and have watched me over the years. Well, not over the years, but now over a few months. And I'm appreciative of the fans. I really am. And so, please don't be afraid to say hi. And what's happened here especially in the last couple of weeks, we have gotten some of this the entire offseason, but especially in the last couple of weeks, I have had pretty much everybody I've run into, and some people I see all the time because some of the stores that I go into regularly. I'm chatting like the guy at the fish counter at Heinen's. I chat with him all the time. There's other people in other places I go. So the person one of the people that works the deli counter in Lake Road Market or whatever. It's a couple of people that work at Lake Road Market. And so you go to different places, and when you go to some places regularly, but beyond that, just people that I've only met once or twice or whatever, without exception. That I can't think of an exception for the past, I'd say, 10 days. Everybody I've run into says, Bull, this is going to be another Cleveland moment. And I hate when people say that. And whatever, you could say whatever you want, but as soon as they say that to me, I'm like, listen, you got to get over that. Stop, and I understand. And what's amazing, as I said briefly on the show yesterday, the TV show yesterday, was people in this area are so proud of being from here. The pride that people take in being from Northeast Ohio, being from Cleveland, is like nothing I've ever seen. In terms of people wear Cleveland stuff all the time. Anywhere else I've lived and places I've visited, I don't really see that. So people are very prideful of being here, and they should be. Despite all the jokes I've told this story, but for those who haven't heard it, when I first was offered this job or my radio job here back in the late winter, early spring of 2011, I had never been to Cleveland, and I at first was told that I was going to be, that there was a station that was interested in me within the company I was working for at the time in New York, but I didn't know where. They didn't tell me where it was. I didn't realize at the time that it was going to be a new radio station. I thought they were offering me a job at a station that the company currently owned, an already functioning sports station. So Cleveland wasn't even on my radar because I was looking at all the stations that the company owned, and I was like, okay, Miami, that's interesting. Chicago, sure. L.A., okay, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, as long as it's not Detroit, I'm excited. I'm taking the job. And that was unfair, too, because I didn't know anything about Detroit. I'd never been to Detroit. But, what you hear people make jokes, and we probably make jokes about Detroit. I don't really make jokes. We make jokes more about Pittsburgh. But I'm sure Detroit's people are prideful there, too, and it's probably great in its way as well. But when I found out that they were starting a radio station in Cleveland, a sports radio station, and they were interested in hiring me. At the moment when I first was told about it, there was part of me that was like, yes, I'm getting my full-time opportunity. I've been busting my ass for years in small markets and then part-time in New York, and it's finally paid off. The hard work is paid off. I'm getting an opportunity, and there was a little part of me that was like, Cleveland? But what did I know? I didn't know. I'd never been to Cleveland. I'd only been in the state of Ohio once, and I'd never been to Cleveland. But, your mind gets clouded with all this nonsense that you hear, like jokes made by comedians or whatever it may be. So, excuse me. I'm blow my nose on the air. I know that's gross, and I apologize. Ugh, I've lost my garbage can. That's not ideal. Anyway, so... But you hear those things, but that was just a minor thing. Like, I was going to take the job. I was very interested, and I was like, okay, we'll figure it out. So before I even came here to visit and meet with the people here, and I'm a little off track now. I apologize, but I will get to the Browns in a second. But I don't know. I just feel like telling the story, and if I'm boring you, I apologize. But if you stuck with me this long, I guess you're not bored. So I ended up, it turned out I knew 4 people that had either lived here, went to college here, or it turns out I knew somebody that had originally been from Cleveland and was living in New York, and I just didn't know. I honestly don't even remember who the people were. But I happened to, none of them were close friends, but I happened to run into, within a month or two, 4 people that had at least lived in Cleveland or Northeast Ohio for a period of time. And all the people I spoke to were like, oh, my God, it's a great place. You're going to love it. It's this, it's that. And so now I'm super pumped up. And then they pulled the rug out and said, no, we're not starting the station in Cleveland. Sorry, you're out of luck. Of course, they changed their mind again, and I moved to Cleveland. And the point is that I love living here. There's a reason I have been living here for over 11 years. I don't know for sure I'm going to live here the rest of my life. The only reason I would consider going somewhere else at this point is because I hate the winter and I would, want to live somewhere warm. But that's probably more of a retirement thing, and I'm not anywhere close to being retired. Besides that, there's no reason to go. I mean, my life is good here. I have friends, my wife and my son. This is, my wife has a great friend group, and my son, this is all he knows. He's born and raised here. He wouldn't want to live anywhere else. And there's a lot to be prideful about being from this area. It's a great area. There's a lot of good things about it. It's not perfect, but nowhere is. Every place has got their positives and negatives. But in terms of being able to get around, lack of traffic, I mean, it's awesome. Family, schools generally are good, solid. There's a good food scene. And it's a big enough city that you have a lot of things, but not so big that you can't get around. I mean, it's great. Okay? There's nothing I don't like about Northeast Ohio except for the winter weather, and that's the entire northern part of the country and the entire northeastern part of the country. That's not exclusive to Cleveland. I should say, except for the weather in the endless winter. So it brings me all the way back to the point of Browns fans. You have so much pride in your community, your town, your city, your area. You need to try to drag that into your Browns fandom. And I get that it's hard because the Browns have crushed you so many times. You've put your heart, your soul, you've put everything into this football team, and they have let you down time and time again. And maybe it's going to happen again. And I understand their record on opening day since they've come back in 99 is horrendous. But that doesn't matter. And, this idea that because the Browns got rid of a quarterback, well, it's Cleveland, so he's going to beat us. Now, listen, nothing's a guarantee. I feel good about the Browns winning. I get it, though. It's always possible he's going to win. That doesn't mean the Browns made the wrong call in this situation. One game, even though we're going to react to it, and I probably will, especially if the Browns win, I'll admit I'm going to destroy Baker. And if the Browns lose, then people are going to try to crush me on Baker, and I'm going to take it. What are you going to do? Even though in reality, it proves nothing one way or the other. Nothing. Not a little. It proves zero. But we won't react that way. But I'm telling you, going into the game, stop having this attitude. Cleveland is not cursed. The Browns are not cursed. The Browns have had bad ownership and bad decision makers. And they still probably have bad ownership at this point, in my opinion. Hopefully they have good decision makers. I believe they do have good decision makers now, as long as they're not being overridden by by the ownership. So go into the game with a positive attitude. And if it goes wrong, okay, because that's sports. You're used to it already. But what's the point spending weeks and weeks? Oh, it's so Browns if Baker wins. Why is it? Well, this hasn't happened. The Browns haven't had, credit to Baker. He's at least worth being a starter in the league. The Browns haven't had many other quarterbacks that have been worthy of being starters in the league. I'll give him that. I mean, he is one of the 32 best quarterbacks. Unfortunately for the Browns, he wasn't high enough on that list that made it worth keeping him, but he is one of the 32 best. So he should be starting in the league, and so he is. And instead of sitting here, it's going to go wrong, whining and crying, talk about the fact that you have Myles Garrett, one of the premier players in the NFL, going up against a rookie. A rookie. Do you know how hard that is? Even if this rookie ends up turning out, maybe he'll have a good game. You never know. But even if this rookie turns out to be a really good player, Myles Garrett should kick his ass. And Jadeveon Clowney on the other side. The Browns secondary is fully healthy right now. As good as any secondary in the league. And I think they're underratedly solid. Underratedly solid. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I'm saying it anyway when it comes to linebacker. Yeah, I'm concerned about defensive tackle. I'm not overly concerned. On the offensive side of the ball, the Browns have as good a running game as any in the league. We know the studs they've got there. They haven't played the whole preseason. Amari Cooper hasn't played. David Njoku's barely played. This team is really good, and I'm very confident that they are going to take care of business in this game. I believe in the Browns. I do. I believe in them in this game. Now, again, I understand the limitations of Jacoby Brissett, and it's going to be a challenge for the Browns in the long run of this season to make the playoffs, and that stinks. But I think they got a shot because they got a really good team around Jacoby Brissett. And if they play to their strengths and they're creative and play with energy and excuse me. We always talk about the Browns or about Baker playing with a chip on his shoulder. The Browns need to play in this game with a chip on their collective shoulders and beat the crap out of the Panthers. The Browns, to me, are the far better team, and the reason they're an underdog in Vegas is because heavy money from the public. The heavy percentage of money has been bet on the Panthers because of revenge game factor, because everybody hates the Browns right now. And you folks have to embrace that. I'm embracing the fact that everybody hates the Browns. I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to use it. It's going to fuel me, and it should fuel you too. All right. Quick break. And then I want to talk about the opening night game today, and I want to get to the Guardians and their disappointing loss yesterday. If you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, you are depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? There's a new flavor. Delicious, indulgent, Cookie dough, covered in chocolate. You got it. Built's done it again. Cookie dough chunk puffs, light chewy texture, real cookie dough chunks. It's phenomenal. Only 160 calories and 15 grams of protein. Go to Built.com to snag a box for you and your family right now. Built.com. Make sure you use the promo code LOCKEDON15 and get 15% off your order. But you've got to use the promo code LOCKEDON15 at Built.com. Man, can't clear my throat this morning. Okay. The opening night. Well, in fact, I'm recording this at, let's see, it is now 8:13 in the morning, Thursday, September the 8th. So about 12 hours from now, the NFL season, well, 12 hours from me recording this, not by the time you're listening to it, but it was 12 hours from now, the Bills and Rams will kick it off. I'm going to look at the updated line on this. I got to tell you, the Bills are favored by 2.5. It's hard to believe in a way. You think about it. The Rams won the Super Bowl, and they're an underdog to start the next season at home. So, I mean, Vegas thinks that the Bills are the far superior team. And I'll tell you what, I agree. I think the Bills going into the season, at least to me, on paper, look like the best team in football. Josh Allen is, as good as any quarterback in the league. They've got an excellent wide receiving core led by Stephon Diggs. They got a solid tight end. He's not spectacular, but he's solid. He he's a good guy to grab fourth down, third and short, red zone situations. Their offensive line is solid. Even their running game doesn't have any big names. I mean, it's not a Browns running game, but it's good enough. They added this kid James Cook into the mix, and Singletary, their lead back, I thought played really well, kind of came into his own at the end of last year. And we know what Josh Allen can do with his legs as well. Defensively, they're very solid. But I was going to say not spectacular. I don't know if anybody is spectacular defensively in the NFL. And that's why when Leroy Horde came on with us yesterday, it's like, the Ravens won the Super Bowl. They didn't score any offensive touchdowns in a bunch of games. Now, I'm like, you can't win that way in the NFL. I know the old school guys want to keep going back to things like that. An example from 2 decades ago, it doesn't do me any good. You can't win. I mean, I don't think I guess we don't know for sure, but I don't think you can win in the NFL just with defense anymore. You can't you can win with an average quarterback if the rest of your team is great. You cannot win with a nothing quarterback. You can't win a Super Bowl with a nothing quarterback, not a below average, a guy who's a borderline starter. You can't win that way, I don't think. I mean, I don't think we'll ever see, because of the rules, because of the salary cap, all the rules that favor the offense, the way the teams throw the ball, I don't think you can win with Trent Dilfer at quarterback, completing 6 of 14 passes for 37 yards. I mean, I know that's an extreme example, but you can't. I just don't think you can win that way. Anyway, the point is, the Bills are loaded on both sides of the ball. The Rams, I'm a little concerned about the Rams because Matthew Stafford's been dealing with an injury this offseason. They say he's fine, and maybe he will be. Until we see him in a game, which we haven't, you don't know for sure. I don't love their running game. Cam Akers was a guy as a rookie I was really impressed with, but he came back from that torn Achilles, I believe it was, late last year, didn't look good. He and Darrell Henderson both been a little banged up early, so I'm not loving their running game. I just have a feeling that the Bills are going to come out on fire in this game, and I actually think the Bills are going to win this game comfortably. I think the Rams are going to struggle on offense. I know they didn't last year. Cooper Kupp had a magnificent season, but they got some new pieces there. Odell Beckham's gone. Robert Woods is gone. Now Allen Robinson, who's obviously a really good talent, and eventually, I just think there's some chemistry issues there that they're going to have to deal with, which the Bills have none of that. The Bills have none of that. Pretty much all their key pieces are the same as last year. So I like the Bills in this game. I think they'll win. I think they'll cover. I actually think it's going to be a little bit of a lower scoring game than you might expect. I don't want to say a low scoring game, but I like the under, and I hate, as my old buddy Dustin Fox would say, life's too short to bet the under. But I'm going to bet the under on this one. I think it's going to be like a 20. I think the Bills are going to win like 24-17 or 27-20, something like that. I think it's going to be under the number of 52. I like the Bills to cover the 2.5 points. All right, folks, I got to talk to you. Speaking of fantasy and over-unders and all that stuff, let's talk some Sleeper. Sleeper is the fastest-growing fantasy platform today with the NFL season kicking off. Sleeper is climbing the charts with over 4 million users. In addition, they just launched 22 new features, including over-unders integrated into fantasy. It's the first sports contest game built into the fantasy experience. Now, not only can you enter a contest via over-under itself, but you can also do so through your fantasy league's matchup screen, and it's super simple. First, in any sport, choose 2 or more players that you like and pick the over-under. For example, rushing yards in football or number of points in basketball, then choose the amount of money you want to enter into the contest. If you pick correctly, you can win anywhere from 2 to 20 times the money you put in. The main reason I'm excited about Over-Under on Sleeper is that it's the only app where I can join my friends' contests and play together. That makes it even more fun competing against your buddies. You talking trash, all that. It's got a built-in group chat where we can do all those things. It's insanely fun. So stop what you're doing and download Sleeper now to play their over-under game, have fun with your friends, and make some money. On your mobile phone, join our listener group on Sleeper at sleeper.com/lockedonbets or sleeper.com/lockedontoday, and they'll automatically match your first deposit up to $100. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use of details. It's Sleeper. Okay, folks, got to talk about the Guardians. Brutal loss last night. I was so tired. Believe it or not, when the game goes to the bottom of the ninth, for a moment I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll go to bed. I was really, really tired last night. And I'm like, Clase, he's lights out. No problem. He's going to take care of business. It's 1-0. They haven't scored. Karinchak was looking a little shaky. He couldn't find the plate. Unfortunately, the same thing happened with Clase. It was a bad night. Hopefully this is a blip on the radar because obviously both of them have been lights out. Karinchak since he came back in, July or June maybe. But Clase has been brilliant all season. It was his first blown save, I think, since early May, maybe. But both of them couldn't find the plate. And, he walked those first 2 guys, and, they come through with the 1 hit, and then Perez gets the sacrifice fly, and that's it. This is not the time. Obviously the bats have been struggling. Even against Kansas City, they didn't do a ton of hitting, and they didn't do, they only got 1 run yesterday. But they've been able to overcome some of these offensive struggles with the great starting pitching from the top 3 guys and the amazing bullpen. And again, both Karinchak and Clase they just could not throw a strike yesterday. It was so weird how it happened. Karinchak's had that problem before. That was a major issue for him at times last year. But Clase's never had. His strength. Clase, I think he'd only walked 5 guys all year before yesterday. So it was extremely bizarre that he lost his command. Hopefully it's just a blip. I think it's just a blip, especially with Clase. I'm be stunned if it's not just a blip. However, it's something to keep an eye on because, everybody goes into a slump, and this would be a bad time for Karinchak and especially Clase to go into a slump. But that was kind of eye-opening because the big Clase's been amazing. He and Edwin Diaz of the Mets have been the 2 best closers, 2 best relievers. But the one thing that particularly stood out from him more than any other relief pitcher was he didn't walk anybody. And yesterday he had just no command of the strike zone. Fortunately, they actually gained a half a game on the Twins because they had gotten rained out on Tuesday. So the Twins played a doubleheader yesterday against the Yankees, and as we all know, the Twins just can't beat the Yankees. So the Yankees swept them in a doubleheader, but the White Sox got a win. So the Guardians now have 27 games left. A very tough schedule coming up. They have a 2-game lead on both the Twins and the White Sox. That's it. I still think the Guardians are going to win this division. But you're only up 2 on the Twins, and the White Sox, they're the team that I've got my eye on because I thought they were done. about 2 weeks ago, and they're playing much better baseball. But obviously, I've also got my eye on the Twins because that's who the Guardians are playing after an off day today. But they'll be playing. You think about this. In the next 16 games, they're off tomorrow. They're off today, and then they'll play 16 games in 15 days, starting Friday. Because they got a doubleheader. And of those 16 games, 12 are against the Twins and the White Sox. 6 at home, 6 on the road. A series at home with the Angels in between. The whole season will come down to this. And what's interesting, and it's smart, originally I'd said Bieber was not originally going to start in this Twins series, but Francona has changed the rotation. Well, not changed. He moved everybody up a day because of the off day. The Guardians, it's a good thing they have an off day today. Everybody gets moved up a day, and so the Guardians will have their 3 best pitchers going in this Twin series in Minnesota this weekend, which to me is huge. And then I think they'll all, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They'll have Bieber and Quantrill again pitch against the Twins in that 5-game series next weekend in Cleveland. McKenzie will miss that series because he'll pitch the makeup game against the White Sox the day before it starts. So tomorrow it'll be Quantrill against Dylan Bundy. That's an edge for the Guardians. Saturday, McKenzie against Chris Archer. That's an edge for the Guardians. And Sunday, Bieber against the Twins haven't announced their starter for Sunday. But the Twins' 2 best starters are Joe Ryan and Sonny Gray. And I don't think either is expected to pitch in this series. We'll see. I'm not sure what they're doing with that Sunday game. The Guardians got to get the bats going. They've got the pitching. They've got to get the bats going. Yesterday was a big disappointment. I do think the bats will get going. I'm not worried about Clase and Karinchak. I think yesterday's a blip on the radar. You let it go. You move it along. You know, when closers have one bad outing, people go nuts. Clase's been great all year. There's no reason to believe this is something happening. He had a bad night. He had no command last night. Hopefully they can run him right out there to get a save against the Twins tomorrow night. It's going to be okay. All right, thanks for joining me today. Make sure you check me out on Twitter at Adam the Bull, of course. Cameo videos. Check out my website, adamthebull.com. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Where else but right here in the bullpen with Adam the Bull. See ya.